Who, Jack?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll need that. Alicia, are you staying or leaving?
No, I'm going to get food. Sorry.
To show you one of the things you have to be able to do as a leader is to be flexible. Now, I don't mean put your foot behind your head, because I got to do that if my life depended on it.
I can do that.
But to be flexible, because sometimes things don't work out exactly like you think they're going to. Such as when I put my PowerPoint together for tonight, and I got here and I plugged in my computer, which then had the blue screen of death. Now, the computer was able to restore itself, which was great. I was like, this is cool. I just pressed a button and it fixed itself. But it couldn't recognize the PowerPoint. So I will try and get this out to you with some kind of explanation as it goes on, but if I don't worry, you're going to get most of it this evening. There are three kinds of leadership, and they build on each other, and they are also dependent upon each other in that they all, eventually you wind up doing all of these. And those three kinds of leaderships are transactional. Transactional leadership is basically kind of that blending of management and leadership we talked about last week. That you're given tasks, you pass those tasks out, you delegate those tasks, then you administer the doing of those tasks. So that you're actually dealing with the actions that take place in whatever your goal is in getting to your goal. The second kind of leadership, and it is a more advanced kind of leadership, because quite frankly, most everybody, not everybody, but most everybody can perform transactional leadership. There's not a lot of, there are skills involved. I don't want to make it sound like there's not, but basically if you're given a task or you have somebody you're working with on a task, you can get that task done without any kind of great, stretching of your personality. The second form is transformational leadership. Transformational leadership is developed from what you learn in transactional, but it also goes even further than that. And basically the definition of transformational leadership is that you are involved in the transformation of other people, their development, their growth, in whatever areas you happen to be dealing with. Alan's a manager for DOT. And as a transformational leader, he's involved in the people that work for him because it is a management position. His transformational leadership is to make sure that they get what they need, that they have the personal and professional growth that he can help provide them with. Hopefully he's doing that. One of the other things of transformational leadership, and it's a great skill to have, and I wish I had more of this skill. I have some, but I wish I was better at it than I am, because you can never have enough, is being able to look at people and watch them and understand not only what their skills are, what their strengths are, so that you can utilize those in the performance of whatever you're trying to accomplish as a leader, but also in recognizing that everybody has weaknesses, recognizing what those weaknesses are, and helping them to shore those up. John Maxwell, I'm so glad you talked about John tonight. John Maxwell talks a lot about how we need to develop our strengths, not so much our weaknesses, because you'll only gain so much in working with your weaknesses. This is a point I don't necessarily agree with John on, because I think, and I've seen it in action, people who have weaknesses can strengthen those. And sometimes they become great attributes for them. Because most of the time when that happens, it's a perception, it's not a reality. The person just thinks they can't do it. And I will tell you, after several years of working at the club level and the district level and dealing with people and approaching them and saying, would you like to be president? 9 times out of 10, the first question I get is,
No.
do you think I can do it?
Oh.
Why would you ask me to do this? I haven't got the skills to be president. I actually had this conversation with this guy over here. Right? In recognizing that he had everything he needed to do this job correctly. And if there were areas where he wasn't completely up to speed, which there really weren't, but knowing how that we could work together and he could work with other people and he would build those skills. It's just like a muscle, you just build it by using it. That's the kind of leadership that is transformational. It's when you're helping other people transform. The final one, and this is kind of the toughest one sometimes, is transcendental leadership. Knew what the word was, I just couldn't think how to pronounce it. How many of you are familiar with the term transcendental meditation? Does anybody really know what that means?
No.
You repeat the mantra.
Okay, well, what does it mean?
It is a focus more on the energetical side, more of the philosophy or theoretical side or something.
Okay,
Transcend the physical illusion.
exactly. Transcending means to get outside of yourself, to no longer be a part of what you're contemplating or you're meditating on. It's the same thing with leadership. Transcendental leadership is leadership where it has nothing to do with you. It is all about the people you're working with. That is not that common, because we all are very egocentric to one degree or another. And usually there's something that we're dealing with that has to do with us. But if you're a true transcendental leader, you're not going to be concerned about what happens to you at all. All you're going to be concerned about is working with your people, making sure they have what they need, and helping them to develop into the people that they should become. I got to get a bottle of water, excuse me. So, if you work,
There's cold ones in the cooler.
that's fine.
It's not cold.
I just need wet.
I'm-
Suddenly I'm getting cotton mouth or something. Transactional leaders can and should move towards the transformational leader. And the transformational leader's goal should be to become a transcendental leader. Massachusetts Institute of Technology Sloan Department, which deals with management and leadership, said there are 4 things that a leader needs. And I love the way these are written. Sense making, visioning, relating, and inventing. And I know I'm talking way too fast for those of you taking notes. Sense making, visioning, relating, and inventing. And I just want to look at those for a little bit. And I love the way they're written because they're verbs. And what do verbs do? Show action. These things are things that leaders take action on. Sense making means they can look at a situation or a environment and understand kind of what's going on and how it affects whatever it is that you're doing, whether it be a company, an organization, whatever you're leading. So sense making is really important, because if you can't really understand the environment in which you're working or the environment in which you're trying to accomplish your goals, it's really tough to get there. So that characteristic of sense making is very important. Visioning, we kind of all know what this one is. Visioning is the ability to develop a vision that has to do with the goals you're trying to accomplish, how you're going to get there, what your timeline is to get there, who you're going to need to get there, and then being able, this is a very important part of this, and this is the next one, is relating. Be able to relate that to the people you're working with. The communication of your vision, and I will tell you this from a district governor Toastmasters level, is one of the most important things that you can do. Because you not only have to know what it is that you would like to do or what your goals are to do, but you have to be able to translate that to people, and translate that to people in a way that they will not only understand, but they will buy into. Therefore, there's a little motivating going on, there's a little influence going on, there's all these kind of things in that communications process. And that last thing, inventing, we've done a lot of that at the district level, and that's what I'll speak mainly about in my examples. A lot of times there were things we wanted to accomplish, there was no process. There's no way to do that. So we invented something. And hopefully we were within the guidelines of Toastmasters International. Sometimes we were skittering on the edge, about to go over. But in order to accomplish the things we wanted to, we had to invent ways to do this. And if you are not a creative thinker, if you are not inventive, then you probably are not going to have that as one of your strengths as a leader. Doesn't mean you can't be a leader. It just means that you need to surround yourself by people who are inventive, who can come up with great ideas. This is one of the true gifts of a great leader, is to know who to surround himself by. I want to talk about some of the traits that are most common in leaders. And if anybody has any comments, just jump right in. I'll be asking you a question on this, or opening up for questions, rather. Some of the things they say a great leader needs to be is an effective communicator. Everybody buy into that? Okay. I think you have to go a step further. And it's one of the reasons why I'm really anxious to do the study group we're going to start in the middle of next month on John Maxwell's book, Everybody Communicates, You Connect. Is that as a leader, you not only have to be able to communicate your ideas, you have to be a good encoder. In other words, taking your idea, putting it in a way so the person receiving it can decode it correctly. That's what communications is really all about. But you have to be able, in these cases, especially when you're dealing with nonprofit and volunteer groups and things like that, you have to be able to do it in a way that you really connect with that person. You have to be able to make a connection. Because that's where the inspiration and the motivation and the buying in comes from, is through that connection. If I go up to Rodney and I say, Rodney, this is what we're going to do this year, X, Y, and Z, and then I just walk away. He knows what we're going to do. He knows what our goals are. Has he bought into it? Probably not. And if we can develop a connection, if I can reach out to Rodney, and we make that connection that we need to make, chances of him buying into this, taking ownership of it, and that's really what you have to have your people do, is take ownership, is much greater. Has to be a motivator, as we've talked about. How about confidence? Does a leader need confidence, self-confidence?
Yes, oh, yes.
Are there any great leaders who don't have self-confidence?
No.
Do you think so?
Yeah. The King's Speech, he stuttered and he overcame that, but he was scared to death that he would fail.
It's true. And I guess my question to that would be, and I'm not disputing what you're saying, how much better of a leader was once he got over the fear? Once he developed self-confidence in that area as well as others, become a better leader. So I think you do need a certain amount of self-confidence, and I have absolutely no doubt that Birdie in that movie had a lot of self-confidence in other areas. Trustworthiness. How far can you get as a leader if you're not trustworthy? If you're not honest. Okay? Decision-making skills. I think this is true for everybody, but especially for people that are in a leadership position. Sometimes you have to make decisions in a split second. And sometimes you know you're right, sometimes you just hope you're right, but whether you are or not, you still have to make the decision. And then you can deal with the aftermath later if you turn out it was a terrible decision. Believe me, I've made a couple of those. You have to be a good listener. Why do you have to be a good listener?
Here.
Okay.
So that you can offer someone what they need to be able to buy into what you want them to buy into.
Exactly. And you won't know that unless you hear, unless you listen. One of the things that I love about Toastmasters that doesn't get played up as much as it should is this system is really developed not only for you to be a good talker, but also a good listener. Because a lot of the roles that we have to do with listening. When I am the counter in any situation, people may think I went to sleep because I closed my eyes. Because I want to really listen. And if you really want to listen, close your eyes. Because the abilities go up like crazy.
Well, when I made my speech and I closed my eyes, I got spanked.
Well, that's because you were giving the speech, we were doing the listening.
I have to say one thing, though. We're all nervous giving the speech when we get up there. And I think what Helen maybe was getting at I think we're all nervous, even people that get up and talk all the time. That doesn't mean you're not confident. But I think being an evaluator is harder than being up there giving a speech, because you do have to listen.
That's right, we have to do both. All right, here's, to me, is the most important thing about being a leader, and it's something that has become a part of me in the last couple of years. Developing others, that transformational leadership I was talking about, by creating and sharing opportunities. Sometimes opportunities fall in your lap, not very often. And especially if it's an opportunity you're trying to give to someone else. You're trying to open up an opportunity for someone else. A lot of times you have to create those opportunities. And when they do come to you, then you have to be willing to share them. Because something else a leader has to be is generous. Now, I got to tell you, that was a tough lesson for me to learn. And I'll give you an example. The hardest thing of the normal things you think about as any kind of leader was delegation. Because quite frankly, none of you guys can do it as well as I can. And it wasn't until I was division governor and I was in charge of the hospitality suite, and we were trying to build some fake walls for the hospitality suite. If you want to know the story, I'll tell you later. And I had to leave because we were also doing kind of a production number in the opening of the conference that I was a major part of. And I had to leave that in the hands of two people who I just knew were never going to get it right. I mean, they were friends of mine and I loved them, but it was not going to be the way it should be. And when I got up there, it was better than what I had envisioned.
Do you micromanage?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's actually two different things, not being able to delegate and micromanaging. Because when I finally realized I have to turn this over, maybe I just turned it over and walked out and went, well, you know, there we go, whatever. You know, we'll get whatever we get. And I learned at that point that you really do need to trust others. And it's still a struggle for me sometimes. But one of the rules that I read this somewhere, and God knows I have no attribution for this at all, and I apologize. But the idea was, why would I spend my time doing something when Christian can do it at least as well as I can? If I'm the leader, I'll give it to Christian, let Christian and his team handle it, and I'll go do something else that maybe nobody else can do. So you have to be able to recognize those things. Sharing and creating opportunities, huge part of this. John Maxwell again says that leadership is influence. I agree with that. So you have to be able to influence people. If you can't influence people, I don't know what you're doing, but you're not leading.
And be careful what you say, because people will remember.
Yeah, we do.
Especially in Alan's case.
And it's surprising I'm in a good mood today, because I was in a field unit all day today and I had to do my job.
Coaching, you have to be a good coach. And coaching is one of those really weird things that I never understood at all. I thought I understood it, didn't have a clue. Went to some training about 6 months ago, and there was a session on coaching, and I went, well, I'll just go to that, you know, because he'll tell me, you're perfect. You know everything. Turned out I didn't know anything. Because my idea of coaching, if I'm going to coach Helen, is to tell Helen, okay, Helen, how are you doing that? No, you're doing that wrong. No, this is how you need to do that. Micromanaging. This is, that's not coaching. Coaching is to say, Helen, that didn't work. How would you change that? Because everything that you're going to coach in someone, everything that you want to bring out of a coaching session is in them already. Yes, it is. It's there. Great sports coaches live by that rule.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you want to learn coaching and leadership, coach a Little League team.
No, that's just learning patience.
It doesn't have to be a Little League team for that.
Okay, I'm going to run through the rest of these pretty quick because I'm not going to keep you long tonight. That alarm's going to go off any second. You have to be able to access and understand information. That has a lot to do with the sense-making thing we talked about earlier. You need to be a role model. You need to be the person setting the example. If you're a leader and you're not setting the example, you're not a leader. You need to be empowering, which we've already talked about. I want to empower you to do the things that you can do and some of the things you don't think you can do, but I also need to be engaging, which means I need to be constantly being in communication with you and talking to you and finding out how things are going. Because if I just throw something at you and leave you alone, I'm not your leader. I'm not helping you. Because how will I know if you need something from me unless I engage you? There needs to be recognition of all team members. And for those of you who are at the training this weekend, I apologize. I'm going to repeat a story. This is not the only version of the story, but I heard it first time this weekend at training. And I like it better than the old one. John Kennedy is touring Cape Canaveral as they're working towards his projection of getting a person on the moon in a decade. And as he's walking through the facility, a guy comes by with a cart, pushing a cart, obviously a janitor. The president says to him, "Sir, what's your job here?" And he says, "I'm putting a man on the moon." That is the kind of attitude that you want to foster. That's the kind of thing you want. You want to recognize all of your team members from the highest level to the lowest level and recognize them equally. Because every person who has a part to do in whatever you're trying to accomplish as a leader, that part's important. Anybody ever look inside a clock?
Yes, I have.
Thousands of little tiny little things. You don't think that every piece is important to the objective of being able to track time? Take out one small spring, one small cog, and it just quits working. Same thing with teams. Leaders need to be lifelong learners. You need to be always engaged in making yourself better, learning more, being more tomorrow than you are today. It's kind of my tagline for my own personal life. And one of the things I have learned this year that you have to do, and I've learned a lesson it's not a tough lesson to learn. Wish I could have learned it a different way. Is as a leader, you have to be able to plan at different ranges. You have to be really good at making short-term plans and long-term plans. And one of the things we talked about last week in the difference between a manager and a leader is managers almost universally have very short stages. Their planning is in very short stages because they're accomplishing a job. Leaders, on the other hand, must have a further vision. And I don't know if I shared this last week. If I did, forgive me, I'll share it again because it's that good. As a district governor, one of the things I wanted to see was our district become distinguished this year. It's been 5 years since we've been distinguished. And we not only missed it, we missed it by a good country mile because we actually have fewer members in the district now than we did at the beginning of the year. I don't understand that, but it is the truth. We're going to get under 600, but I don't know how far underneath that. We cannot be a distinguished district when we're losing members like that. Plus, we didn't get as many new clubs doing it. Now, the good news is, I think tonight I just got word that the one club we needed to go over President's Distinguished level in DCP clubs, in distinguished clubs, happened tonight. And to me, from the very beginning, that was the goal. That's the one that's important. Because as the leader of the district, my job is to be concerned with, are the clubs doing their job? Are the members getting what they need? That's my number one job. And that we accomplished in a big way. I don't think we've ever hit it that high before. So what I learned was that even though my goal of making distinguished this year did not happen, I really honestly believe that all the work we did this year, all of the things that we did accomplish, and we accomplished a ton of things this year, has set up next year, this district has a better chance than it's ever had of going beyond distinguished into select and maybe even President's distinguished. I take that as a victory. Because if we hadn't done the work, if we hadn't done what we needed to do, if we had not done our jobs well, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't be true, and it is true. So that long vision sometimes, even though I realize the fact of that, Sometimes it takes a lesson to come home to you to realize just how important it is that you look beyond just where you're at, you look into the future. There are 4 things that a servant leader, and as leaders in this club and in the district, we are servant leaders. I would like to say that all leaders are servant leaders, just doesn't work out that way. There are 3, I said 4, there are 3 things that you need. You need integrity. You have to have integrity. You don't have integrity, you're not going to last long. Because people will lose faith in you. And if people lose faith in you, will they follow you?
No.
Absolutely not. You have to be authentic. I talked earlier about being goofy, Dennis. Guys, that's what I am. I am nothing else. I pretend to be nothing else. That is the authentic me. And I hope it comes through in everything I do. I don't know how to be anybody other than who I am. Nor should you try, nor should I try, nor should you try. Because that authenticity, that's your voice. That's who you are. That's what you have to give to the world. Yeah, sure.
Oh.
The final torpedo captain.
Cannot be flat this
Get me out of here.
The third thing that you must have as a servant leader is a belief in something greater than yourself. And that could be a cause, or quite frankly, it can be the people that you're working with. Most of the people that I work with, I see as greater than me. Because I'm kind of out of the formula. And I see the potential, and that's the goal, is to help them however you can to reach the level that they can be. One final thing I will tell you, and I've said this, I know some of you have heard this before, but I'll speak this till the end of my days. The best lesson about being a leader and dealing with other people came about 4 years ago for me. It was a very short sentence delivered by Jana Barnhill, who was a former international president of Toastmasters. And she visited our district in the year that she was the immediate past president. And she gave a keynote speech on leadership and then did a workshop on leadership. I don't remember almost nothing of what she said in either one of those things, which is true for most of us and most things that we listen to. But there's one thing that's in my marrow that she said. As leaders, and those people who follow us, we have a dual role. And we all recognize that one of those roles is to lift them up. And we all do that really well. We lift them up. But never forget the second part of that formula is to push them forward. Recognize their strengths. Do whatever you can to get them to engage and accept those strengths. Push them forward. Thank you. You're free to go if you need to, but it's